Hello.
Hello. Attends, on
Oh,
est pas dans le bon sens. Okay.
hello. Beautiful.
Hello. Yeah,
Looks like you have nice weather over there. It's cloudy here.
Yeah,
we have excellent weather. It's
Awesome.
31 degrees Celsius.
88.
How much? How hot is it?
88.
Oh,
Very
okay.
nice.
That's kind of warm. Well, welcome. First of all, I want to start by having you introduce yourselves, Jean-Baptiste and Theo. Tell everybody. Actually, could you both tell us who you are? And Theo, I know you grew into the business, but Jean-Baptiste, maybe tell us your background too.
So my name is Jean-Baptiste Cordonnier. I'm the owner of Château Antonique in Moulis-en-Medoc. My background is I started as engineer in water and forest. That's my basic diploma. And I started my career in Africa with technical cooperation during 2.5 years.
Back in the early 90s.
In the early 90s, and I started to work to follow my father at the estate of Château Antonique in 1993. So
Okay.
I'm here for a long time. Uh, and so I'm managing my estate in agroforestry. So to make a link with my technical background in forestry, and I'm also a forester. For 2 years, I've bought a forest in the Pyrenean Mountains in Ariège.
I
So
want to hear about that. I don't even know where Ariège is.
It's,
So we
it's south of France, but I'll present myself first because if we let him speak, he will speak for hours without stopping. Forest is a passion of his. So so I'm the son, the eldest son, Theophile. I have two younger brothers and one younger sister. I actually joined the company in January this year. I'm just finishing my master degree in business. Nothing really to do with wine, but I studied business in Lille, northern France, at
uh-huh.
ESX School of Management. It's a school from the Catholic University of Lille. I'm joining the company as commercial or yes, commercial. You say
sales rep.
Sales rep for Antonique, and we have a goal to develop or to develop distributing Antonique in several countries, in Northern America, Canada, and the US, and in Asia, Korea, China, Japan, and Singapore, to
Wow.
name a few.
Okay. Awesome. So you're in Bordeaux, but could you tell us about just kind of specifically where you are and why you're in Moulis-en-Medoc, right?
Right.
Yeah, so we are located on the left bank of the Gironde, on the way between Margaux and Saint-Julien,
Okay.
but not so close to the Gironde River like them. We are in the center of the Appellation Moulis, quite close to the village. From here, you can see right in front of us. You can see the church of Moulis.
Maybe I can show
We
you
can show you.
the church.
Really?
So
Oh, wow.
that's the estate, and maybe you can see over there the
Yeah.
church. The church of Moulis is there.
Wow.
It's an old church from the 13th century,
The
the
11th
century, and 11th century, so even older. And
Oh.
actually back there here is
Yeah.
Chateau Clark from Listrac that you know,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
You
yeah.
were there last week.
You were
Yeah.
there last week. So,
Awesome. That's super cool. Theo, you're very good at the camera.
thank you. Let's get back sitting. Yeah. Oh,
So can y'all explain why Moulis is its separate? What makes Moulis the separate appellation? I know it's the soil, but maybe a little more info about why Moulis is separate from Listrac and separate from Medoc or Au Medoc.
So that's secret history of Medoc. The origin is that every village was quite independent. So when the system of the AOC was created, it was around the original village. So Margaux was Margaux and surrounding small villages, and you had the same in Moulis, the same in Listrac, and
Saint-Julien, Pauillac.
Saint-Julien, Pauillac, they always, appellation system always corresponds to villages.
Okay.
Sometimes a group of villages were united in one appellation when the villages were too small, but so that was like
Okay.
ever. So the name of Moulis is coming from the wind
Windmill.
and the water mills that were quite present in the village. We had 5 or 6 of them, and they gave the name mills. In French, we call that moulin, and that gave the name, that became the name of the village.
Oh, funny. Okay, cool. Thank you. So then tell us about the estate. How big is Chateau Antonique? What grapes you grow? What wines you make? And what makes you unique as a chateau?
So Chateau Antonique is 30 hectares big. Well, it's 30 hectares in production, between 28 and 30 every year. The whole estate is 40 hectares actually. When you account for all the woods that are also part of the estate. We mostly grow Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon. We also grow a bit of Petit Verdot and a bit of Cabernet Franc.
So we have 4 varietals.
4 varietals. The reason we grow so much Merlot, being an estate from the left bank and from the Medoc, normally it's more Cabernet Sauvignon. But the reason we grow so much Merlot is that our terroir, or soil, is made up of clay and an underneath of blue clay that is really good for Merlot. And this is a specificity of very local specificity of Moulis and even more of Antonique, to have this clay soil as opposed to a more gravel soil that is better for Cabernet Sauvignon and that you would mostly find in the Medoc region.
Right. And the position of Chateau Antonique is quite unique with the blue clay underground. We have 80% of our parcels with these blue clay, and it's the highest percentage you can. It's quite rare in southern Medoc, and it's the highest percentage of these soils you can find in one estate in Medoc. It's more common on the right bank in some parts of Saint-Emilion and of Pomerol.
Okay. So what is blue clay? Why is blue clay different? And how does that translate into the glass?
It's the French name is Marne Bleu. So it's a very compact clay that is retaining a lot of water. And that is able to give it back to the vineyards when you have a heat wave. They are almost closed to the roots. It's so compact that the roots cannot cross this clay. They can go inside for a few millimeters.
Oh wow!
Maybe a few centimeters, not more. They cannot cross. So when you have the chalk, then the clay, and then the soil, you have the contact with the chalk only from place to place when you have a hole in the clay, and the drainage is going through these holes.
Okay, thank you.
The natural drainage.
You talked about the trees, and that's your specialty. And so can you tell us about your work in the forest? I'd like to hear a little bit about what you did in Africa, and then your forest in Ariège, and then why the forest benefits the vineyard. So long question.
So
first Africa.
So if you have 2 hours, let's start.
No, you can. I'm sure you can do it short.
Theo's gonna
the short version.
Yeah.
I'll time him.
Exactly. So I started making a forest inventory in Guinea, in Western Africa. So a few months, and then I've traveled a lot in Congo, working also with pygmies and working quite a bit in wild forest. So I'm, I have forest in my heart.
Okay.
for the beginning. And so big jump to Ariège. It's a large forest of 450 hectares in the mountains at an altitude of around 1,000 meters, between 700 and 1,400 meters altitude, a north face of the mountain. It's a wild forest. Mostly, it's a mix of some Pyrenean pines and mostly beech trees. And it's a wild country where we have some wolves, but it's untold. And we also have bears and wild birds. It's a very nice place, and I cultivate that forest without white cut. The soil is never newed. We only take a tree from place to place, and we never cut a complete parcel. So it's a very natural management of that forest. We manage it like an ecosystem, and I try to do the same with my vineyard, connecting my vineyard with the surrounding forest we have quite close to Antonique, because the landscape in Moulis, it's different. In Margaux and Saint-Julien, where you have mostly vine. Here in Moulis, you have a landscape with parcels of vines, parcels of forest, sometimes a small bouquet of trees inside the vineyard.
Let's show.
So Theophile will
For example,
show you.
here,
You can see some
behind the parcel. You have a bunch of trees.
Mm-hmm.
Let me show you here.
Oh, right.
Here. And this is a small wood that was always there. I mean, it's been there for a few, I don't know, a few years, a few hundred years maybe. And you have a lot of those bushes inside the village, not inside the village, but in the surroundings of the village. So it's not only vines, vines. It's a lot of trees as well in Moulis.
Okay.
Back to my dad.
And what we try to do is the basic practice in agroforestry is to make the connection between the two ecosystems, vineyard and forest.
Okay.
So when you have a small parcel of wood inside the vineyard, you make the connection by planting edges, following the ditches, following the parcels, and making the connection between the trees inside the vineyard and the forest. So, and these edges will act like wildlife corridors. They will introduce a lot of biodiversity inside the vineyard. That was my first step in agroforestry. I have planted an edge. It is that one. You can see it.
Oh, yeah.
So that edge was the first I've planted 10 years ago.
Okay.
And now we have like that a complete network of 2 or 3 kilometers of edges crossing the whole vineyard and making a real network. So the second step started a few years ago, so 3 or 4 years ago. We had started to plant trees inside the parcels.
Inside every new parcel that we would plant.
So when we replant a parcel, we introduce a range of trees every 20 rows of vineyard.
Okay.
So we lose place. It's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
We lose 9% of our surface. But at the same time, we increase the density of the vineyard by 11% because we reduce the distance between two vines inside the row. We reduce from 1 meter to 90 centimeters. So when you make the addition, we will win in total 2% of the number of vines inside the parcel. So we lose nothing. We lose place, but never production and never quality, because the density is good for the quality. And the concept is that we want to have a tree at least at a distance of 15 meters of every vines, every
Wow.
vine.
Okay.
And we choose that distance for a real reason. It's the max distance to have the contact between the roots of the tree and the vine through the mycorrhizas by the fungi they host on their roots. So you can introduce a contact between vines and trees who are in the edges or inside the parcels. And that will increase a lot the invisible biodiversity we want to introduce in the soil. That is much more impressive than the biodiversity you can see in the air.
Mm-hmm.
What you mean is there is even more life inside the soil than outside, right?
So
Yes.
that then, it's a very, very basic question, but how does that biodiversity in the root system help or benefit the vine?
So that's the key question. First of all the trees, basically in a parcel in agroforestry, including the edges, we will have 50 trees per hectare, 40 to 50 high trees. So they are pruned, not so high, but it's not a bush. It's a real tree. So and these trees, these edges will give a lot of when we prune them, we crush the branches, and they will start a sort of mulch that is quite benefit for the soil, that will cover the soil. And that will be the best starter, like in a forestry soil, to produce some
Humus?
some humus.
Okay.
So that's the best starter, and we will complete that coverage by cultivating plants between the rows. So we try to imitate the forestry soil by adding a lot of biomass coming from the wild plants we cultivate between the rows, and from the trees and from the edges, without having a forest competing upstairs for the light.
Right.
And that
So yeah, the idea is trying to recreate or replicate the
wild soil,
wild soil or wild area that you find in a forest, with all the how you say, les feuilles,
all the leaves,
all
all
the
the
leaves
branches,
that die,
etc.
the branches that die on the floor, and that reintegrate the soil. Also recreate all the network of roots through which the different species of trees and vine are communicating through the symbiosis that they do.
So then,
The first benefit that is that we will save a lot of water, because we will increase the organic inventory of the soil, the biodiversity of the soil. So the soil will save more water, and will be able to face more efficiently the global warming, the heat waves, etc.
Second, and this is super important for Merlot, being a varietal of
more sensible for that. Yeah. The second advantage is that the roots of the trees will introduce quite deep in the soil a natural drainage by their roots, through their roots. The third advantage is that they will host a lot of fungi, and these fungi will cooperate with the vineyards because they will save water that they will give back to the plants, to the hosts, and behind these hosts you have the vineyards in this house, and so they will give that water back during the heat waves. So they will help their hosts. They will also, these fungi will have an access to the rock, to some minerals the vines will never take alone. They will never find it alone by the roots, but by the fungi they will. And the fungi will share that with their hosts. And the vineyards, in exchange, will give some sugar to feed the fungi that will not make photosynthesis. So it's an exchange, it's a symbiosis. And they will also exchange some signals about stress, parasites, attacks from other fungi like rot, etc. And that will increase the natural defenses of every plant in the system. So that is also helpful. The fourth big advantage of the agroforestry is that the trees will have an impact on the microclimate of the parcel. They will act like natural air conditioners. A tree will take water in the soil and evaporate that water at 4 or 5 meters high, and more when it's pruned and when the tree is rebuilding the system with new branches, new and young leaves, and it will evaporate a lot of water. And it's a thermodynamic system. So the evaporating water will keep calories in the air, and that will erase the peak of the heat waves. And when you have 40 to 50 trees per hectare, you can reduce the temperature of the max temperature of the parcel by 3, 4, even 5 degrees. It's the impact is visible, and not only by shadow effect.
Because
the last, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The last advantage is that the trees will host a lot of visible biodiversity, small mammals, reptiles, insects, birds, and they will also give back their signal to the bats when they fly during night. So they will hunt on the parcels, and they will buy some parasites of the some butterflies that are attacking the grapes. So that's a complex and positive system.
Wow. Yeah. I'd heard years ago that, vines want to do two things. They want to climb and they want to drop their seed. And so the tree was always necessary for that. So you're really going back to the real basic. I read in one of the articles that Theo sent me about a maple tree. Does it matter which trees you plant?
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah, it does. It's 50% of the mix, because the wild origin of the vine is that narrow forest following the rivers. In French, we call that la forêt galerie. And in the origin countries of the wild vines, they were climbing in the European maples that were living in that type of forest. So they have a lot of genetics, a lot of fungi that they share, and they can communicate together. So
they co-evolved through
during millions of
thousands
years,
and millions of years. Yeah.
So we use 50% of maples in the mix, because it's the base of the success.
Wow, that is incredible. Obviously we could hear you talk more. We're running about to the half an hour, and Brenda Boris is on here, so we have to talk about Cru Bourgeois. Can you explain to people what Cru Bourgeois is?
So I can tell you what Cru Bourgeois was, because I left the Cru Bourgeois actually a few years ago. But it's a system, it's a classification that was created on the base of a deep history. It was created in the 1930s. It almost disappeared during the 50s, and it was recreated at the beginning of the 60s, and we had the new classification. The Cru Bourgeois had a new classification in 2005 that was attacked to the court, and that system was cancelled. And so a new system appeared with a yearly certification but that was
Classification.
it was a certification, not a classification. That was not not appreciated by the market and by the owners themselves, because they have no visibility about their future with the yearly certification, and a lot of owners left the system at this moment. So they tried to recreate, beginning of this year, a new system with 3 levels and a classification for visible for the next 5 years. But I refused to submit my wines to that, because I was not confident in that system. The key actors of the Cru Bourgeois, they obviously left the system years ago.
I see. Okay. So with the quarantine, is everything back to normal in France? Everything is, you can eat in restaurants, all that, everything is back?
Not really back to normal. You can eat it in the restaurant, and hopefully a lot of people will start going to the restaurant again. It's really, it feels different, because when you go to the restaurant, the waiters have to wear the mask, and so it's there is a bit more distance. Eating in a restaurant is not really the same as before, but you can do it. Otherwise, the rest seems to be back to normal, at least in the countryside where we are. We obviously, there is more space, and so there is less contact, and people have been able to deal with the quarantine without changing so much their habits as they would have done in the city, I guess. But no, it's you can still feel that the virus is impacting the daily life. Otherwise, for business, it's been tough in March and April. Basically, when France was locked down, we couldn't sell much wine, even outside of France. Inside of France, we managed to sell through our website, and that worked a lot. So that was really positive, and we had really fidèle, comment tu dis?
Faithful.
Yeah.
Loyal.
A really loyal clientele of private clients that really supported us, and that was amazing to see, to witness. And now, over the past weeks, we've started again working abroad with the export.
Are starting
but
up.
Even during the quarantine, we have shipped 2 orders to US.
Oh, great. Okay.
In the middle of the quarantine.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, I will let you go. Do you have anything else you want to say to people? But it's been a pleasure chatting with you both. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jeff.
So thank you for your time and for your invitation, and I hope we will meet in real life.
I hope so too, either there or here. So see you soon.
Welcome here.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye-bye now.
Have a